A review of how the Immigration Minister came to approve residency for a convicted drug smuggler has concluded it's too high risk for ministers to be making decisions about deportations. The report by QC Mike Heron also reveals sufficiently powerful grounds were presented to the Minister for convicted drug smuggler Karel Sroubek to be deported, and it was unexpected when he chose to grant residency. Iain Lees-Galloway's bungled handling of the Sroubek case led to calls for his scalp. And Mike Heron says giving the power back to officials is a way to keep the minister above the fray. Our political reporter Jo Moir has been following today's developments.
Karel Sroubek is in jail for importing almost 5 kilograms of ecstasy and faces deportation on his release. He is appealing his deportation after Iain Lees-Galloway reversed his earlier decision to grant him residence. Today, a report commissioned by the Chief Executive of the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment concluded a more sensible system would be to leave the responsibility for complicated deportation cases with delegated decision makers at Immigration NZ. The head of Immigration NZ, Greg Patchell, says his staff have the expertise.
The point that Mike makes in his report is those individuals do this stuff not so much day in, day out, but on a regular basis and are well tuned with the system. But again, as Mike points out, the nature of absolute discretion is it's really up to the individual faced with the information to weigh and balance the things that they want to weigh and balance. You could argue a person who does it more regularly has more ability to do that, perhaps in a more instinctive way. However, it's at the end of the day, the law gives them protection around that absolute discretion.
A recommendation in 2015 to make changes to the power of absolute discretion were not adopted by then Immigration Minister Michael Woodhouse. That's left a dictatorship-like scenario where a minister can make decisions without receiving any advice or recommendations and leaves little ability for Immigration NZ to push back on decisions. Such is the case with Sroubek, with ministry officials surprised by the decision to grant residency, given there was sufficiently powerful grounds to deport him. Mr Lees-Galloway has been under fire for not reading the complete file and subsequently having to reverse the residency decision after the opposition began drip-feeding information to the media about Sroubek's checkered past. He's refused to say whether, in hindsight, he should have read the full file and sought advice from officials.
Look, I've made changes to the process that I use. I've made sure that I have time to consider the file well in advance of making a decision. I have legal representation in the room to help make those decisions. I have made changes to my decision-making process.
MB's Chief Executive, Carolyn Tremaine, repeatedly told media today that the decision sat with the Immigration Minister.
He has to make the decision based on the information he has, and he made the decision. It's an absolute discretion, and we don't question what he has decided.
But Nationals Justice spokesman Mark Mitchell says the findings confirm the minister stuffed up and should go.
The whole thing is grubby, and no one has ever from Labor, and certainly not the minister, has ever come forward and fully offered an explanation to the country as to why he made such a shocking decision.
The report's author, Mike Heron, says it makes sense for the minister to be the exception rather than the rule when it comes to making these decisions.
The minister's a very important, head of the department who are responsible for running the machinery of government, and to have them in this position of absolute discretion, making decisions on individual cases, well, that's what the statute says, but it's quite high risk.
Mr Heron says shifting the power back to the ministry is about protecting the minister and the department. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern says she has confidence in Mr Lees-Galloway, and this report makes it clear that the process itself was the problem. From Parliament for Checkpoint, Jo Moir.